as soon as I understood emotional flashbacks, so much of what I was feeling made sense. So, what are emotional flashbacks? You may have heard of just flashbacks. And the most common example is of soldiers who come back from war and suffer from PTSD. And so they have these visual flashbacks of the things they experienced in that war situation. Emotional flashbacks are not visual flashbacks, but are flashbacks to the feelings you've had before. So they work the same in that they all of a sudden you feel something, where somebody with PTSD and visual flashbacks all of a sudden almost sees or hears things. But they are feelings, and therefore they are harder to pinpoint and to know what is going on. And understanding, even knowing that they exist and understanding them a little bit, will help so much, because when you don't know what emotional flashbacks are, or that it's even something that exists, you think that everything you feel in every moment has to do with the situation you find yourself in at that moment. And a lot of times, when it comes to the fearful avoidant attachment style, which this channel is all about, you will have these flashbacks when it comes to your relationship. So you are um, engaging in conversation or doing something with your partner, and all of a sudden you are triggered. And then you feel all these feelings, very intense feelings, very negative, overwhelming, scary feelings. And you think, well, this comes from me talking to my partner, so this relationship must be wrong. And so you project these feelings that you're feeling onto your relationship and onto your partner. Well, in reality, the irony of it is that a lot of times these emotional flashbacks happen in safe, healthy, committed relationships. That's when the trauma comes out, comes up to be healed. But then you have to know what to look for and know what it feels like. So that's what we're going to talk about. So emotional flashbacks are a sign of complex PTSD, where, like I said, PTSD usually is the example given is from soldiers from a war situation, which is a single point in time, very intense, very traumatic, very severe. Complex PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder, is created over a longer period with sometimes very severe, very traumatic events, but also can form from less severe, less traumatic events in that moment, but stacked upon each other, create this very complex stress disorder, post traumatic stress disorder, because of the repetition. So that is a very short explanation of complex PTSD, and emotional flashbacks are a component of that, a symptom of that can happen when you have complex PTSD. And I think a lot of fearful avoidants have complex PTSD due to the way they were raised. So now the 6 signs. The first sign is that this feeling comes out of nowhere. It is being triggered, as we say. So there is a trigger, and all of a sudden you have this overwhelming sense of anger or grief, and you have no idea where it comes from. So when you don't know about emotional flashbacks, you just assume that it has to do with whatever you're doing in the moment. And because the fearful avoidant attachment style comes into play most, or gets triggered most, in romantic relationships, you tend to project it on your relationship the most, thinking, whoa, this relationship must be really wrong because I feel so bad. I feel so many negative feelings. And like I said, that can actually be the absolute opposite. This feeling could be the first that is safe enough where you can heal. The second is you are scared of the feeling. So any feeling has associations to it. And you might not be aware, but different people feel differently about different feelings, which sounds so weird, right? But For instance, the feeling of guilt, for some people that is overwhelming and they are very scared of that feeling. They don't want to have that feeling. They resist it. They do everything in their power to stay away from that feeling. Whereas for another person, guilt might be a little bit uncomfortable, but it's definitely not overwhelming. It's maybe quite neutral, and they just know how to handle that and kind of reflect on, okay, what can I do differently? And then it's gone. So the fact that you feel something doesn't mean that it's overwhelming and that you're scared of it, but the associations you have with it cause you to be scared of the feeling. So something gets triggered, you feel a lot, and you're scared of that feeling. You don't want to feel it. You feel so much resistance towards feeling this way. The third sign is you feel helpless and powerless while you're feeling these things. And this goes hand in hand with being very scared of the feeling, because there's associations around feeling this way when you were little, when you were powerless and helpless and you couldn't change things. And so you are very scared of the feeling because there's no way to deal with it. There's no way to get out. That was the truth when you were a child, but now you're a grown up and you have a lot more possibilities and a lot more power. But emotional flashbacks kind of throw you back to childhood and being a helpless and powerless child. And that is why they are so scary to have, because you genuinely feel very powerless and very helpless. You feel like a little kid again, essentially. Then the fourth is that they trigger fight or flight or freeze or fawn reactions. So they trigger those scary situation reactions where your body just does any one of those four things, almost like it's a life or death situation. And that could happen while you were just sitting on the couch with your partner and you were talking about something and they said something not meaning ill at all, but you felt rejected, for instance, and all of a sudden you have these flooding feelings and you feel like you want to fight, or you just completely freeze up, or you just want to get away and feel repulsed by your partner. So that's what they trigger. And in a normal securely attached situation, you wouldn't be triggered to the point where you want to fight or flight or freeze. You might be triggered, but then you're gonna talk about it, or you can just kind of reflect on what is happening. So when you notice yourself going into fight, flight, freeze, fawn, then you can maybe also realize, okay, wait, maybe I'm having an emotional flashback. This is more than just what is happening right now in this moment. And then the fifth sign of emotional flashbacks is the type of feeling it is. So a lot of times it's fear, it's guilt, it's shame, it's anger or rage, or it's grief. These are some of the primary feelings and emotions young children have in situations where they are abused, whether that's emotional manipulation or whether that's physical abuse. These are very common feelings and emotions in those situations. So whenever you're feeling any of those in a very overwhelming way, then that might be a sign of an emotional flashback. And then the sixth one is that it can either last moments, but it can also last for weeks. So I remember when I would be triggered, sometimes I would just be closed off, is what I would call it. But looking back, I was just flooded. And flooded means that the feelings that you feel are overwhelming for your system. So it kind of just shuts down in a way. And that could take weeks. So sometimes when I would get triggered, I would be like, now I'm going to have this for at least 2 weeks. But as I healed, that became less and less long. So the moments were shorter. So it's hard to say if it's only a moment or weeks. It can be both. But the other signs are definitely ways to recognize emotional flashbacks. And there are different ways to heal through these and handle these. If you have emotional flashbacks and you have CPTSD, I do recommend finding a therapist, somebody you really trust, to work through this. And if you're comfortable, it helps already so much to know that these are actually emotional flashbacks and you don't have to fix or do anything in this moment. So as you heal the fearful avoidant attachment style, you will notice that it becomes easier to feel your feelings, to allow your feelings to be there, and to just hold space for them and sit with them instead of trying to fix them or suppress them or resist them. And as you become better at that and recognize that these are emotional flashbacks and you don't have to actually do something in the present moment to fix the situation you're in, it becomes easier to just allow those feelings to be there. And sometimes a memory comes up because it wants to be released and healed. Sometimes it's just a fake feeling that you recognize. Sometimes you don't recognize it, but just the feeling in and of itself, completely allowing those feelings to be there, is healing. Because you are showing your fear brain, your system, hey, it's okay. I am choosing to feel these feelings now. They can't hurt me because they are just feelings. They are just sensations. I am more than my body. I am more than my feelings. My body is bigger than these feelings because these feelings take place inside my body. So just feeling these feelings without wanting to fix, suppress, or resist them is healing in and of itself. Just know that you don't have to do anything else. Just sit there and allow it to be there. Allow any memories to come up. And like I said, if it's overwhelming or the trauma is severe, please find somebody to work through this. It will really help you so much in being more free, in living your life, and being able to deal with these moments, because they can be quite scary. I hope this was valuable to you. Let me know in the comments below if you've ever heard of emotional flashbacks, if you've ever experienced them, if you knew what was happening when you experienced them, maybe also how you dealt with them or how you healed them. Maybe we can learn from each other. And if you have any questions about them, please also comment so I can answer those or make another video on this. As always, I am so happy you are here, and I will see you in the next one.